So the first step as we recover from our failures as Easter people is to keep our guard up. Here's the second step, is to simply get back up. We have to make the choice to get up. When you fail, and you will, the enemy of your soul shouts in your ear, stay down. I heard one preacher say that God whispers in your ear because he's close to you, but the devil shouts because he's far from you and he wants to seem bigger than he is. And he shouts in front of you. The Bible says he's the father of lies, and he shouts things like, why get back up? Because you're only going to fail again. You're pathetic. And God knows it. He shouts things like, why get back up? Do you honestly think God's going to give you any more grace? But that's not Jesus. Jesus can always be found extending his hand to each of us saying, I know you failed. I get it. But it's time to get back up. It makes me think of when Peter got to walk on water, right? He had enough faith to get out of the boat, and he's the only person that ever walked on water besides Jesus. But when he got his eyes off of Christ and onto the wind and the waves, he sank. But that wasn't the end of the story. You remember? Jesus reached down his hand when Peter called out for him. It was the hand reaching down of Jesus to pick him up and pull him back up. And he's doing the same thing for us today. He does the same thing for you. When you fail, he's calling for you not just to get your guard up, but to get back up. And he wants to help you. Here's step 3, if you're still taking notes, is don't get tied up. Don't get tied up. And when I say don't get tied up, here's what I mean. We get tied up when we take our eyes off of Jesus and the plans that he has for us, and we start looking around us at other people. That's when we start to get tangled up. We start comparing ourselves and looking at other things, and right, and looking around at what God seems to be doing for others. Okay, let's go back to John 21, but I want you to pick up in verse 20. Remember, Jesus just finished restoring Peter. It's amazing, and it's loving, and it's beautiful. And then he had this prophetic word that he spoke over Peter, saying like, this is how you're going to die. This is how you're going to glorify God. When you're older, your hands are going to be stretched out, and you're going to be led where you don't want to go. And we know from history that that's how Peter died, that he was crucified almost exactly like Christ, except that he asked that he would be flipped upside down because he didn't feel like he wanted to be exactly the way Christ died, right? So Jesus forgives him, speaks life into him, tells him how he's going to honor God by dying on a cross, and this is Peter's response, right? To show you that he's still human and he's still messed up, he says this. It says, Peter turned around and saw behind them the disciple who Jesus loved, the one who had leaned over to Jesus during the supper and asked, Lord, who will betray you? And Peter asked Jesus, what about him, Lord? What about him? And honestly, guys, if I were God, that's the point when I would have struck Peter with lightning. I mean, honestly, enough is enough. Like, how much do I have to forgive you? How much do I have to let go? How much do I have to restore you and speak life into you that I have these great plans for you? And then all you're concerned about is, okay, this is what's going to happen to you, but I want to know what's going to happen to him. What's going to happen in his life? Is he going to get the same treatment as me? Or is he going to get to ride off in the sunset and be the most famous of the disciples? And honestly, guys, and it's a good thing I'm not God, because at that point, the sky would have opened up, breakfast is over, kaboom, Peter, like you're just a memory, and we move on with the rest of the New Testament, right? It's ridiculous. But before we judge Peter, if we're all honest, we all do that, right? I mean, all of us look around, and we see what God's doing in other people, and we ask God, what about them? How come I don't get to have what they have? Seems like everybody steps in it, right? Everything's wonderful for them, and I'm going through this, right? We want to know why it's not happening. Maybe we're going through difficulties, and it looks like everyone else is having the time of their lives. But as Easter people whose failures don't have to be final, we need to be sure, guys, that we keep our guard up, that we get back up when we fall, and we don't get tied up in comparing ourselves to other people, in looking at what's going on, just like Peter almost slipped into. And here's the last one. To recover from failure, you need to hold your head up.